Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I take a dive into somebody else's perspective on movies, and I have a special guest who I'd like to introduce. So, welcome aboard. Just introduce yourself.
My name is Anyonka Virgon. I'm a drag queen, cosplayer, nerd fanatic. Love everything nerdy.
We love a lot of nerdy things around here, so I appreciate that. And before we jump into all my lovely questions, if you would like to shamelessly plug anything for the audience.
I stream video games on Twitch if you like to watch Twitch at all. I also have a TikTok and an Instagram. All of them are under my name, Anyonka Virgon. Same hashtag for each of them, super easy. But yeah, check me out if you want to get to know any of those little things. I do lots of nerdy things on all that. Lots of fantasy, sci-fi, that kind of stuff, yeah.
A lot of awesome cosplays. I've been a fan
for
a while. So thankful for you coming on to the show. And I'll make sure to put all of your
thank you so much.
Links.
My little hashtaggies.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to check you out on your TikTok or Twitch or anything, they'll be able to find you.
I haven't been doing as much. I've been in a mood, but I'll do more, I promise.
Good.
I've been in an uncreative mood. I know everybody's probably going through that same thing too.
We all have our moments, right?
Yeah.
But to get things started with maybe everybody's least favorite question to be asked about movies, which is, Anyonka, what is your favorite film?
What is my favorite film? It's easy. It's an easy question actually for me. But my favorite film is Willow. And it was there's a whole bunch of things with it. It was the year that I was born. So I don't know. I just grew up with that movie. And it has not necessarily queer undertones, but it does in a way. There's Mad Mardigan kind of doing a drag scene when he's dressing up like the woman to hide from the guy having an affair. And then Sorsha, I feel is a very kind of masculine, feminine character. So she's not necessarily a lesbian because her and Mad Mardigan get together, but she's still this powerful kind of masculine, feminine character. I don't know. But yeah, that's my favorite movie of all time. And now I'm so excited because there's going to be a TV show. But yeah, that's my favorite.
Because I know Disney announces a ridiculous amount of things. And I remember when they dropped, it's there's a Willow teaser for a Willow show coming out.
Yeah. And it was I kind of heard about it. And then I was I don't know if they're going to actually do it because they kind of X'd a few of their other projects. And they weren't talking about it really that much. And then all of a sudden, yeah, they put out a few teasers of the cast and things. And I was ooh, I'm so excited.
It's exciting.
I love Willow. It was just a really good movie, I feel for sci-fi too, because it still kind of holds up in a way. They did the CGI with the animatronic kind of stuff that I feel made it feel last longer than some of the other sci-fi movies of those times. Yeah.
Yeah, the 80s were big on practical effects, and I wish a lot of that stuff would come back.
Yeah.
Because CGI is great and all, except when it's not.
CGI is great, but I feel it's a lot of work. I feel at this point, I don't know, they lean one way because they're this is expensive, but which one really is it more expensive at this point? Who knows? Because I'm feeling CGI would be way more expensive now.
Yeah, it's
it might be cheaper to go back even for them. You might want to just go back to practical. I think a mixture is good though, they did in Willow. I think that was a good mixture, when they had the animal morphing scene where I think the ostrich part was an animatronic piece, but then the lion was just CGI kind of shifting to the woman to the lion. So I think it was a good kind of mix of the both. But yeah, I love Willow. And the fight scene with the old ladies was the best because when there's the part where she just decides I'm gonna stop fighting over this wand and just punch her in the face, it's just funny. There's a lot of good I feel it's a lot of fantasy tropes, but it also was outside of a lot of tropes too in a way.
Yeah, I definitely have to revisit it because I haven't watched it in years, but obviously with the show coming out, it's definitely worth taking the time to go check it out.
Yeah. And uh like I said, I feel like it really holds up still.
Mhm.
The costuming, there's like trolls in it, and they basically just have like those faux fur black outfits on. It's like a onesie, but it's like brushed, badly.
Mhm.
So some of it you're like, oh, that's a little kitschy or whatever. And some of their practical effects was like putting a kind of a creepy rat dog outfit on a dog and like letting a dog run around or whatever, but it actually kind of works, like that portion of it compared to the weird onesie things. But uh yeah, I get lots of people to watch it. I'm one of those people that's like a pusher. I'm like, I push movies onto people.
Uh-huh.
So whenever people ask me what my favorite movies are, and yeah, I'm one of those people that does answer a different, kind of, it's like what you would say, I'm sure, is like, what genre? The first question that when someone says that is like, well, what's your favorite movie? Well, what genre are you asking? Because I'll tell you what my favorite movie is of your kind of favorite movies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's
But
so
as far as of all time, Willow is like my number one. Yeah.
well, and it's really hard to make fantasy work, and it's always wonderful to actually see one that's interesting and engaging and
Yeah.
fun.
And there's a lot of fantasy can sometimes be, you need to be able to grab people that like fantasy, but also grab people that are not that like entrenched in a fantasy
Mhm.
and be able to have them understand it without like them needing to read a book of like, ancient lore or whatever. I enjoy those too. I enjoy the ones where there's like the extra, but I think a good fantasy, yeah, is like a mixture of being able to grab people that might not necessarily like fantasy, but still they could enjoy it. Willow's like that. I feel
Mhm.
like is a good uh all around kind of fantasy. Can get anybody into it, and it's not hard to like understand the concepts of it. It's pretty good.
Absolutely. Now, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
So I don't have memories of like going to the movies because I grew up in a small town where they only have two little like movies in the theater, and it would be like for the whole month or like sometimes like I think like 3 months that would be like the two movies.
Yeah.
But we watched a lot at home,
Mhm.
like Blockbuster and stuff back in the day, back in
Yeah.
my day. But my earliest memory of a movie was Pet Cemetery. And my dad, I don't know why, but like I was like 3 or 4, and he was having us watch Pet Cemetery at our house. And so that's one of my earliest memories. Really messed me up as
I
a
would imagine.
kid. It was like a very traumatic movie to watch, but also kind of funny now when I'm older too. I like rewatching it and kind of thinking about it differently. Um, the scene with the kid where he like calls his dad and he's like, first I played with Jed, then I played with mommy, now I want to play with you. And like I'll never forget that line just because of the way like it sounds. It just was like really funny, but
Mhm.
also scary at the same time. For like that little of a kid, that kid I think was only like 2 or something. I don't know.
Kids can be
But
creepy in movies.
that's my yeah, that's my earliest memories. The scalpel, because my dad was a doctor, so the little
Okay.
scalpel scene where he like cuts the guy's like Achilles tendon or whatever really messed me up. That was like
Yeah.
part of it, where it was like my dad was a doctor, and I cut myself as a kid once with a scalpel, like because I found it in his little like black bag,
Yeah.
and like just like touched it to my finger and basically like cut down to the bone in an instant, and like it didn't even hurt, right away because it was like so fast and quick. Um, but I remember that, and then seeing that movie and that little kid do that, and I was like, oh my god. So from then on, I was like, no scalpels anywhere near me.
That is very fair. I
But
haven't
yeah,
seen
that's my
the
earliest memory. And I'm sure a lot of other people are like, oh, I went to like Disney, or like we went and saw like, yeah, like Aladdin. Like, no, mine was Pet Cemetery.
there you go.
Um, but the earliest one of me going to the theater that I can remember was Tomb Raider. I actually
Okay.
remember going to the movie theater and seeing Tomb Raider with, yeah, Angelina Jolie, and it was really good. I think I was like 13, and it was like one of the first movies I went to by myself. But I don't remember earlier ones. didn't have a great childhood, trauma. You don't always remember stuff, but the earliest one that I could remember
Yeah.
was Tomb Raider. Yeah.
Well, and can look forward to a new one since it's popping out somewhere. I wasn't the hugest fan of the last one, but I did really like Alicia Vikander. But gonna get a whole new one, whoever it's gonna be, and wherever it lands, because
wherever it lands. I'm not one of those haters either. Too, I know a lot of people are like haters of like things that come from video games or books or other movies or like remakes. I always try to like give it the new thing a chance.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always great, but I'm not one of those haters that's like, oh my God, they're like remaking it or whatever. Yeah.
There's so many things that you could do with that. So I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah. Cause like you can make it like completely like they did kind of Pet Sematary where it's almost like identical and they're just trying to like update it. Mm-hmm. Or you can remake it where it's like take a whole new direction. I like when they do that kind of stuff. Certain things, no, it's like not great, but I'm excited to see. I always like video games getting turned into movies because I love video games.
Yeah. And, the hope is that they make some great ones. Because don't think they have the best track record in adapting.
No.
I will say I will watch 95 Mortal Kombat whenever.
I love the old ones. I love the new one. I'll watch Mortal Kombat to the like cows come home. Yeah, that was one of my movies as a kid that everyone hated it. I was like, nope, I love it. It's just right for me. I felt like it was the good amount of like camp, but like sci-fi. The quality of everything could go better, but I think they did good with the campiness because Mortal Kombat is campy. Like the games, they are campy. They like have little jokes and things in them, and they say little things that like back and forth to each other. So I feel like they should always kind of have that air to them.
Yeah, and seeing a guy in a giant puppet Goro suit is always.
They actually did pretty good with their.
They honestly did.
Too. And their outfits were really good. I feel like back in the day, they were really like true to the kind of characters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some of it was a bit much. I feel like the actors, some of the actors that made it a little like over the top. Like Shao Kahn, I feel like was a choice for a casting, but a lot of the ones were good. Yeah. And then you can always revisit it talking about like politically correctness of like a white guy playing Raiden. I don't know. That's like that's.
Was it the smartest idea to go out of your?
Yeah, nowadays hopefully
actor
people more conscious with those kind of things when the remake was made, but when it was back then, it was a little different. But
I think Christopher Lambert was riding high so much off a Highlander. They're just like, we'll put you.
That's fine. Yeah, like I don't know. There's just like. There's certain characters you can really get away with that with, and other ones it's like, and when it's like the hat and like everything, it was like, but I do definitely enjoy the new one. The new one, I feel like it was good. It was a little too much like it was a little identical in a way that like didn't spark my interest of like, well, what's going to happen next? Because I was like, well, are we just going to do everything the same like next? But I did enjoy it. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I hated this. I didn't want to see it again. Like, I'll watch another one if they make one. But
pretty sure they will.
I wasn't like thrilled. I wasn't thrilled.
I wasn't either. But it's exciting to think that we'll get Johnny Cage in the next one.
Yeah, I always wanted Frost. Because Frost is one of my like favorite characters of all time. So that's an exciting thing. But yeah, there's so many characters in Mortal Kombat 2. I feel like it's like Marvel movies as well, where they focus on or like the X-Men movies, it's always Wolverine.
Yeah.
But with like Mortal Kombat, there's a lot of characters that they could focus on now that they could like kind of branch out. I feel like they should. Yeah.
Yeah, but we got Sub-Zero and Scorpion, so we're fine.
My wig is playing Getaway today because I have such big hair. My hair's gotten really long. Sorry. So after like I started growing it out in COVID, I'm so not used to wearing like wigs now that like I have this heavy hair.
It's all good.
So forgive me. if I look like I'm like grabbing my hair all the time. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed the remakes of video game movies as well. Like Resident Evil, I feel like was a good one, the original especially.
I know my brother's a huge Resident Evil fan, and he loves all the Mila Jovovich films. And like, I actually haven't like sat down and watched all of them, but I did see the new one, Welcome to Raccoon City, and I'm like, well,
no, that one was. I was like, and then they just had a new series as well, and the series was okay, but like that movie, no.
See, like I feel like the new movie tried to be like, hey, look, it's Resident Evil,
yeah,
but it's not that interesting,
but it's not that interesting, and it's like a remake of one that was kind of bad, but we didn't make it that much better.
Yeah,
I don't know. When you do remakes too, you always like hit that. You have to either hit it out of the park and be better than the other one, or you're just gonna like, yeah, it's like. You shouldn't do it unless you're gonna do it well.
Exactly. Or
it's kind of like drag queens too. Drag queens always have like looks, and it's like we have a lot of looks from movies too. And one of the ones that I always see, and we all drag queens, kind of your brains work the same as Aliens, like Aliens, Ridley Scott,
yeah,
and the Queen, and we always all do the I'm a bitch, I'm a mother, I'm a child, that song. Yeah. And every drag queen that ever does it, it's usually that's the connection that they all make in their brain. And I've seen probably 3 of them, and I've also came up with that idea. And there's one that's the best out of those 3.
Yeah.
And when I plan on doing it, I now have to outdo that queen because, like, yeah, it's the same for remakes. If you're gonna remake it, you better be better.
Or you're gonna make a lot of people upset.
Yeah. Now, and I don't know. I would just not want to do that. Like if I'm going to if you love something that much that you're like, well, someone already did it, but I love it. So I feel like I need to do it better or whatever. I don't know. I guess it's just like subjective too. Maybe they felt like they did do it better. I did.
True. I feel like Disney just does them because they know they'll make $1 billion.
Yeah, especially all the live remakes.
Lion King made $1.7 billion. They were happy.
So, yeah, they were like, whatever, it's fine.
It's like, I'll just go watch the actual like 94 animated one because at least I love that one.
Yeah, that one's another one. I remember early, I don't know if we did see that in movie theater, but that was another one that was a really early memory of being basically traumatized, yeah, of being like, this movie is not a kid's movie. I'm like, you are wrecking me right now. I cry at movies. I'm the person that like, before the movies start, if they do one of those like touchy, like we come to the movies to feel love and whatever else, like I'll be the one bawling at the movies. Or they do it with like the music. They purposely do it where they make like the music go in ways that it like, I swear hits like your emotions.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's not even like the scene. I can tell it's more like the music. But yeah, I'm that person that's like crying at the movies.
There you go. I've definitely had my moments. So now, what's your favorite genre of films?
Definitely fantasy. I'm just like a nerdy, like Dungeons and a drag queen kind of girl.
There you go.
I like Lord of the Rings. I really like Harry Potter. Obviously not now as much, but when I was young, that was kind of like a thing. Willow.
Gotta go ruin it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, and I had that actually a similar experience with some other ones of like a sci-fi. Like back in the day, I loved Ender's Game as a book. Yep. And then I got older and I found out before the movie came out more about that author. Yeah. And how he kind of had like homophobia and like a lot of other things that he would badly write about and like under pseudonyms. It was kind of similar like to her in a way. And then I remember when the movie did come out and everyone was like kind of trying to boycott it. But yeah, sci-fi movies I like, obviously. And I feel like a lot of those kind of get that that happened with them. Like it's happened a lot of my favorite sci-fis, like Serenity is another one of my favorite movies, and that's like sci-fi. Yeah. And that now has kind of this like weirdness to it with Joss Whedon.
Thanks,
I'm
Joss
like, none
Whedon.
of my movies can be like saved anymore, but Anything sci-fi, Hocus Pocus. Again, we're talking about that. But
another one.
There's another one. Battlestar Galactica. I like kind of spacey sci-fis as well too. So like the movie was like one of the first things that got me into that was the like made for TV movie or whatever of the first episode that was like a pilot movie, the ones that they used to make. Yeah. But I love anything. I like other movies. I like emotional movies too. Cloud Atlas is another sci-fi movie, but I like that a lot. And the book series about that one had its own controversies as well, with like the way they chose to do the reincarnation stuff.
Very interesting, seeing people playing a lot of different characters, probably which they probably shouldn't have.
They probably shouldn't have, and it's a good conversation to have, and I like to have those conversations actually. So that's why I kind of like those movies sometimes, is because like the overall theme of the movie and the book, because you really have to be nice to those things, because it was a book before it was that movie. Yeah. And those choices of design are not about the actual story. So like you do have to take that into effect when something like that happens, I feel like, as well. That whoever was the set and like makeup effect people, that was like a different thing. But I also like movies like White Oleander, which is more of kind of like a traumatic, I don't know, feel good, feel bad movie. I don't know what you call that. It was like it has Michelle Pfeiffer in it, and it's kind of like about the foster system. Yeah. But I like all kinds of movies and genres, but fantasy and sci-fi is probably like my favorite of all of them. Yeah. If I had to choose, like gun to my head, I'm on a desert island where I can only take these types of movies. It's going to be sci-fi, fantasy. But if I had to choose like fantasy of the actual two, I'd rather like magic, wizards, dragons, that kind of stuff. Because I'm a nerd.
Yeah. Well, I am also a nerd as I look over at my Lord of the Rings box set that I have like across the room from me.
And we're getting that soon too, the Lord of the Rings TV show. I'm so excited.
Amazon and HBO are just like, well, you want fantasy? Well, here's some fantasy.
Yeah. And the Lord of the Rings, when I was growing up too, was something that I read the books and then saw the movies, and they're probably one of the best movies from adaptations of like anything, I think, like of all time. So I definitely love those movies. Yeah. We watch them kind of as traditionally, usually around like Thanksgiving. It's like our traditional like watch like the Lord of the Rings movies around Thanksgiving, cooking and stuff. But yeah, fantasy is my favorite, but not the defining one that I have to do. And I do not love all fantasy movies. Like Twilight, no. There's ones that I have to say no to. Not even for the like enjoy it for a cringy kind of sense. Because like if I had to choose a cringy kind of sense, I would choose like Kung Fu Hustle. Like where it's like supposed to be campy in a cringy way. Like that's what it's meant for, instead of like we're deciding to make it this way. Yeah. Because I can handle one, or like Dude, Where's My Car? It's kind of cringy in a way, like where it's supposed to be like that. But no Twilight. No. I hate it.
That is very fair.
And again, one of those movies with like weird casting choices that like also kind of, because I'm Native American, and so at first I thought Taylor Lautner was Native American when I was growing up, and I thought it was really cool to see that. And then you grow up and you're like, oh wait, that wasn't like a representation at all.
No, not
like, but it was a character that was meant to be that. That in itself is good. And I'm happy. It was like, whether or not it was representation for me, it was back then. Like, because it was to me. So it was still good for that.
There you go. I know I grew up reading Percy Jackson and the Inheritance Cycle, and now Disney's just like, well, we're going to do all these right, hopefully.
I love Percy Jackson as well, and I read that. And I remember when that movie came out, was good but I didn't hate it. But I was also sad that they didn't do further with it because I was like, it was good enough that they could have done like more.
They made a
But they
second
definitely
one.
didn't do great with it.
They made a second one. I had never
Oh,
seen
they did? I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not see it.
It's
Was
like,
that one okay?
I never saw it. Honestly, it kind of just like poofed and disappeared.
Yeah, I watched one of them and it wasn't bad. The animation was good, like the CGI, that was all good. The casting, I feel like, was good, but the plot was just kind of one note. I feel like they went too hard to try and appease people that didn't know the material. That's what I was kind of like referencing earlier of like when they lean one way or another, where it's like we're trying, like I also feel like they're doing that with Dune, where they're like going to make it into 5 movies because they're trying to like hold people's hands through like understanding what the concept is. And I'm like, I can't sit through this because we barely got anywhere in Dune. People that don't know the old stuff, because my husband did not see the old movie and like the old material, and didn't realize like, you know, how long it is and like how like much it is of the stories. So when we saw the new one, I was like, what was that? We're ended already. I was like, we didn't do anything.
It's like all set up.
It was literally like just like you set up of who these characters were. Yeah, I was like, it's gonna be a long run with these movies. I was like, I already counted out. It's gonna be like 5. I feel like it's gonna be at least 5 movies.
Yeah, it felt like the first act of a movie, and it's just like, well, movie's over.
Yeah, but it was beautiful. I mean,
Yes.
to people that don't know what like the first one was like, then it's beautiful and it makes it like a good jumping point. But yeah, it just felt very like dragged out short of what like was it, the old was. Yeah,
because you know David Lynch just went for it.
Yeah. Oh, and another favorite kind of fantasy movies that I enjoy are fantasy horror movies. So not specifically always like gory, but like supernatural, not always necessarily ghosts. Kind of like Insidious is like ghosts, but it's almost kind of like demons.
Yeah.
The Witch is like the devil, but also kind of like
it's like
religious trauma. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I remember watching The Witch for the first time and just being like, well, I feel some ways right now.
So I have a horrible story about that movie. So I wanted to see it so bad, and I waited until too late, and then it was like in a smaller one of the little theaters, and we went, and there was a guy with his girlfriend walking in late, and it was only us and them, and it was a guy that had like all of these like gun, like don't tread on me. It was like this giant shirt that had like all of these just like sayings about like guns on the back of it. And I was just like traumatized from that during the whole movie. So I'm watching a horror movie while also like watching this guy in front of me with like laser point eye. So that was traumatizing. But then when I got to watch it again at home without that, it was much better.
Yeah.
But I love The Witch. And it was one of my favorite monster reveals as well, because that always ruins movies, I feel like. A little bit with Insidious. Insidious was a good monster reveal in the beginning, and then there was like this faux fur moment that I wanted to like slap somebody over. But the Witch, I feel like, was perfect because I was waiting for them to reveal the devil, and I was like, if this does like this weird transformation thing, and it's gonna be this whole thing, I'm gonna be mad. And then the way they did it was just perfect. I feel like just
it was
like
subtle. It was eerie.
Yes.
It kind of just like was a shadow coming over.
You didn't see his face completely, but you saw his face. Like you didn't see his eyes. You didn't see it. It was like perfect in a way that like was creepy and subtle. And he was dressed in a way that wasn't like kitschy. It was like of the times of where he would have been a kind of like Westerner, outsidery kind of person. It was perfect. And usually I'm scared of that moment in movies because I know when you watch enough movies, you expect these moments, when something's going to happen. And so when the creature moment happens in movies, I'm always like, come on, don't be a bad one. And, like 80% of the time I would say it's probably a bad one. But that one was, and especially because sci-fi movies, there's always like creatures, obviously. They're like a thing,
Yeah, I was just watching a shark movie screener that I got. I'm like, well, this is a horrible looking CGI shark. Now I cannot be afraid of this thing the whole entire movie.
Sharks are a definite, yeah, like I feel like creature that it's like, I don't know how you can mess up a shark because it's not super like I don't know, like angular or anything. It's kind of like it's like a tube shape with a couple angles on it. But yeah, sometimes if they do it really bad, you're just like, oh. Or even just like character makeup, like aliens or something, if they do it just like in a bad way, it looks so bad.
Like you had $5 and this is
well, I think they don't rely on makeup artists enough, like this drag queen kind of makeup artists enough, because you can do a lot with that, making like skin with aliens and kind of like you know, details, and then just do a couple of little applications. But I feel like they always try to go with like big applications or like nothing. There's no kind of like in between ever. They want to spend like all the money or the no money. But yeah, the character stuff and like animal and then creature stuff in horror movies can be a bit much sometimes. That's turns me off. Horror movies, it has to be like almost perfect for me to really want to like be into it. And especially gore, I don't like it to look too real either. I kind of like it to look a little kitschy sometimes.
It's like, I don't need this.
It's a little real too real, then it is too real for me.
Yeah.
And it's a bit hard to watch, but yeah.
Now, do you have any particular favorite filmmakers?
I really like the, you know, Studio Ghibli movies. So Miyazaki is obviously one of my favorite, and they also, I think, have really helped me with like my artistic career of kind of understanding the ebb and flow of work, learning from them and watching things where they talk about like how they work, and it makes me feel better about being a control freak because I can't really relinquish control. And I noticed that a lot in them, of like they end up drawing a lot of it because that's just how they kind of are. And that's how I work sometimes with my art. So that's probably, I would say, my favorite director, because I've had a lot of them that I've enjoyed. But I don't think I really knew those directors. And then like you learn kind of things later, or like you might see something, or like they might do movies later, and then I'm like, oh, it's like not as good anymore. I'm not so sure. So they're the kind of director that I never really felt that. They did have a moment with their son about their movies, but I also didn't necessarily disagree with them. I disagreed with how they talked about it. But I do understand that if you're a like, say like a expert surgeon or like an expert director, or you're someone that, or like a musician, like you say Beethoven style or whatever, and you just get to this level that's kind of like whoop, and you have kids, I feel like you should never encourage your kids to go into the same work. And I think he basically did that, saying to his son, like, don't do this. And then he did. And I don't think some people can let up competitiveness. So whether you really do think yours is better or not, you might always just like have this weirdness. I don't know. Like, I don't have kids, so I can't say how I would react in these situations. But I would want to at least be truthful to my kids if I was in that kind of situation. And if they didn't make something great, I might just tell them. I wouldn't probably tell them in the same kind of sense. Because I think they didn't even tell them. They found out from them from that interview or whatever. It was like a whole thing. I can't remember exactly. Don't quote me. Someone will like, no, it was not that. But I don't remember it exactly. But I just remember it was like not a very good delivery. And the way they said it was like, they're not quite grown up yet, which I don't think can necessarily, like, everyone kind of took it some way. I don't think it necessarily meant a bad thing. They might have just been like expressing that like there's a maturity that you got to hit to like do, which I think there is. And some people hit those maturities earlier than others. I definitely felt like I hit that a lot earlier than my like peers, especially with movies as well, like understanding the concepts of movies before my peers. But yeah, he's my favorite director, I'd say. Like, I didn't love every movie of theirs. There's like 2 or 3 that I don't like, but yeah, they're probably my favorite.
It's hard to argue with the quality that Studio Ghibli has put out. And there was one year I tried to go to every single one that came into theaters for like Ghibli Fest. And
Yeah.
I literally just rewatched The Wind Rises this past weekend. And that's kind of like a sad little send off for
Yeah.
And because like that one's a lot more of like, because it's not fantasy, it's not fantastical or anything like that.
Yeah.
It has the spirit of his films a little bit at certain points, but like it's a drama, but
Yeah.
like all of them are absolutely beautiful films. And if I could watch, Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away, just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Princess, as an indigenous person too, that like tries to kind of always have that on your mind of like, being at one with nature, because I feel like that's a very important thing that people should, care about. I do appreciate movies that do try to help people come to those realizations in a way, but also I just like how ruthless that one is. Because sometimes you want to be like helping people, and sometimes you do just want to kind of get the visual relief of like Wolf writing, warrior princess.
Yeah.
So I love that movie a lot. And yeah, Spirited Away as a kid was a really good movie, because the whole kind of concept of capitalism, rewatching it as an adult, I didn't realize how much of my personality kind of might have even come from Spirited Away. Because I was always eager to like work, but not eager to like kill myself over work.
Yeah.
And understanding that concept of like when all of the people are trying to get the gold and being like so crazy about it, I was like, I don't understand that concept. And when I got older, I still didn't understand it, like why people wanted to be like that. And then learning more about that movie when I was older, rewatching it, like it was a big eye opener. Like I didn't realize it as a kid, but it definitely probably influenced me as a kid. So yeah, I really liked that one as well. And it's just beautiful. And it's another one of those ones where you don't have to understand it. Like it doesn't hold your hand, but it's still a fantastical kind of movie that I really enjoy.
Absolutely.
And to get people into cartoons, I usually use or like animation. I usually use Spirited Away. Yeah.
It's a great one to do a jumping off point, because it's like obviously so many people watch so much like Disney and Pixar and stuff like that. And then
it's so hard to get people to watch, I feel like, regular anime or animation, because they feel like it's for kids, and like a lot of those are for kids, but they definitely write those for adults as well, because they know parents are watching it with the kids too. So it's like adult tones to help, I feel like, teach the kids, but it's also like adult tones to keep the adults entertained. So
yeah, my brother's huge anime fan and has definitely gotten me into it a lot more over the years. He even got me to go to a couple of cons. So
yeah, I love conventions and anime conventions, obviously. And that's one of my favorite things about doing cosplay is doing a character from a movie or a TV show or a video game that I love, and having people come up to you and talk to you about that like same movie. Really just like makes a convention really fun. And there's just like really fun characters that you can do from movies and stuff that people like that all ages usually enjoy. Like my Star Wars one, whenever I do Ahsoka, like little kids, are like really excited because they're like, oh my God, it's Ahsoka from like Clone Wars. And adults are usually excited because they're like, it's like, that, but also now the Mandalorian and now soon to be Ahsoka. But I just love that kind of con stuff as well. And you get to meet all these people that do like the voice acting and stuff from movies and the animated ones. It's pretty interesting to like see what goes into all that work at the conventions. But yeah, it's pretty fun. Spirited Away, is the one that I always try to get people with, though.
Absolutely. Now, who are some of your favorite actors?
I really love Lily Rabe. Lily Rabe is one of my favorite actors. I really like Angelica Houston. She's one of my favorite actors. A lot of them are men. I love Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum, he's one of my favorite like people, but he's like one of my favorite actors. Not that I feel like he really acts, he almost like is himself. You know those people that are like hired to be just themselves? No, he's not though. Like when I watched, oh my God, that's another one though, The Fly.
Yes.
When I was young, because I don't know what year that was, but that was another one of those ones that like a very early age, like 4 or 5, was like watching The Fly with my dad, and Jeff Goldblum was very hot if you're a queer kid, and there's like this like half naked. It was the same with like Mad Mardigan and Willow, like coming up out of a tent with shirtless with like a sword. He's like slicing his way out of a tent with a sword, shirtless. And as a queer kid, you're like, oh my God. And then the same with The Fly. It was like, at first it was like, oh, sexy. It's like this lean guy, because I was also lean growing up. So seeing like a lean guy be like kind of like the sexy, like main lead was interesting. And then that movie just went to hell. But first you're like enjoying this like scientist doctor man that's like looking pretty nice and like taking off his shirt and getting in a machine, and then it's all downhill from there. But Jeff Goldblum was one of my favorite actors growing up, because in Jurassic Park as well, he was just so funny. And a character those kind of characters I enjoyed that were like very different than everybody else in a way that was like good. There's like, he wasn't necessarily, I feel like, queer coded, but there's always kind of these like mouthy, almost like, what do they call it? It's like the anti-hero or whatever. It's not like it's not a person that's not the hero, but it's not like the villain. It's kind of just like a person that's like neutral, but might say things that are mean every once in a while or whatever. That kind of trope of like a character that's like a mean kind of silver-tongued but also funny person. I always enjoyed that, like a smart-witted person, a quick intelligence, like can cut you with their mind kind of person. And so I love Jeff Goldblum. It's like funny, intelligent jokes, jokes that like you make a joke about someone and they don't understand the joke. It was like so good that they like didn't get it.
Better that.
And I feel like that's his kind of air in a lot of those.
I was in Boston and my now wife and I were walking around, and there's just like this theater, and it's just like, tonight Jeff Goldblum is just like, what?
And he's doing his music.
He's doing his jazz band. So we went, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, and like every so often he just gets up there and just starts like basically doing stand-up, or I don't even know if you could call it that. It's just him being Jeff Goldblum for like 20 minutes at a time.
Shooting the shit for a break. Yeah.
And there was at one point where he's just like, I see people tweeting at me Zaddy. And I'm just like,
he is Zaddy though, but not because of his body, I mean, his body is great. His body is great. His face is great. His hair is great. But he's Zaddy because of his mind. Like, he was a Zaddy when he was young, too. Like, you know those people that are mad because they get called daddy, or like Zaddy because they're way too young? He would have been that, too, if that was a phrase back then, because he was very smart. He was like, he seemed like a dad because he was so smart, even as a young, I'm sure, actor. That's why he was getting booked as a physicist. What was the Fly was like, because he was trying to do teleportation, so it wasn't like a biologist. He was like
some kind
physicist
of
or something.
Yeah, and then and he's a chaos theorist. So far, but he's just like, he's almost 70. I'm like, I'm convinced he's an alien. Like, I'm convinced
he looks so good. Yeah, he looks so good, and he is very like active, and I watched the Disney series with him. He's very funny. He's definitely getting older. I feel like culturally, like he's like, I think getting a little old with that, but not for like his age though. Like not like, I think he's behind, but only like 10 years behind. Not like some of the people that are like 40 years behind. He's like just 10 years behind a little bit. I mean, I'm not judging people either, because even me, for like the people of a certain age, I feel like I'm at least like 5 years behind. So 10's like nothing.
Well, I work with a bunch of college students, and I'm like, I'm 30 now, and I'm like, I'm not that much older than them. I'm like, oh crap, I'm like 12 years older than all these 18-year-olds.
Yeah, I noticed it right away. My nephew, he's 18, 19, and even just the movies and stuff now too. I've kind of lost a lot of movies now where I feel like are doing streaming wise.
Yep.
And that's how a lot of the like Gen Z movies even are happening. I feel like are just going straight to the streaming stuff. So I kind of have not even been noticing it. I've been trying to keep up more with those movies getting released. Like I know the Predator movie is going to be on Hulu.
Yep.
And I was really excited for that because that's an indigenous one. So I was like, yay, we get like a sci-fi alien Predator movie. But yeah, then I saw it was on Hulu, and I was like, it's on Hulu, what? But it looks like it was still pretty good. It looks like it was still okay quality.
Well, I've heard a lot coming out of it that it might be the best Predator movie. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Friday when it comes out. But, that's definitely 100% because Disney's like, we hate Fox. So we're just dumping you on Hulu. Yeah. So petty. So petty of them.
They are. They have, I feel like I've noticed it too. Like the little things that have been happening. Because I've been with some of these streaming services since the beginning. Like Hulu, I was with back when they were kind of a company that all of these TV companies would like put 5 episodes on their own websites, and then they like when the newest ones would come out, like the oldest ones would get taken off or whatever. And Hulu was just like the kind of conglomerate of all those websites. They just like brought them all together, so you didn't have to go to each one to like find them. And it was free back then, like free, no ads, no nothing. And now it's like, a TV network basically making movies. It's weird to see, but the streaming generation now, they're like now they're going to be like NFT straight to your brain soon movies.
Oh, it's an interesting time.
I don't want a movie in my brain though. I like going to the movies. Like I really enjoy the popcorn. I was so mad about the Multiverse of Madness and everybody buying those dang popcorn things. I was like, because I didn't get one because I'll use scalper. I like going to the movies. Yeah,
I will be, because like I go pretty regularly at this point. Like pre-COVID, I would go like 5 times a week, honestly, and getting back into that. But like honestly, there's not that many movies getting put in theaters either.
They aren't. I'm really excited. I want to go see Nope, but I always wait for, especially right now during these times, I'm not like super comfortable in public. So I usually wait till a movie's been out from a weekend, and then I go to try and do like a matinee type thing.
Yeah.
But I do want to go see Nope, but I haven't really, wanted to see movies in a bit. And I understand they're probably just holding on to a bunch of them, and they're literally waiting till people are more eager to go to movies, which sucks. Sorry, you can probably hear let me.
It's all good.
Sounds like someone is using the restroom in my kitchen.
But
I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But I am excited to start seeing movies again more often. So hopefully they did hold on to a bunch, and there's just like a good spread of movies. I'm worried that they'll like try and do them all at once though. Like too many competing movies trying to like, that's what they do. They always try to like snag the week of someone else. So I hope it's not too bad, but I'm excited to start seeing more movies again.
Absolutely. Now, what's a movie that you feel like you could watch literally every day?
So I used to have, when I was 3 or 4, I used to watch The Last Unicorn every day. Basically to the point where my mom said that it was like coming off of the tapes, like the back in my day, the VHSs, and she would hide it sometimes, and then she said I would get like so sad looking for it that she'd feel bad and like give it back to me, and then like I'd watch it so much again. And so I rewatched it recently. I can't take it with the singing and the music. The music actually wasn't bad. It was like this kind of weird 70s, like ethereal sci-fi rock. I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't horrible if it was like on an album, but like thrown into a movie, it was like, I'm not a big music person either, musicals. I know the gays and like the queer people are gonna come and attack me, but I hate like actually Disney stuff. I would rather them like not burst out into singing all the time. And so that like I don't watch that anymore like that. And then in high school, I used to watch the Kung Fu Hustle, that one all the time. But I don't watch that one anymore like that because I was like, I don't think I could do that anymore. So now if I had to choose a movie that I could watch every day, would probably be Willow, my favorite movie. I could watch Willow every day and probably be happy. But yeah, back in the day, Last Unicorn. And my mom was like, if you put this in like one more time, she was probably like on the verge of having breakdowns every day because of that movie. But I think all parents, they have like, the kids are just weird like that. They just go crazy with movies.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast was definitely one in our house.
Beauty and the Beast was,
like my brother would run around singing "It's a Girl," just like, well, stuck forever.
Little Mermaid in my house was one that got played a lot with my sisters. So I know a lot of that one. And Aladdin was played a lot. And Jungle Book. Yep. Jungle Book was another one that my brother was like obsessed with. But yeah, we watched a lot of movies growing up, but the kids, I was the one that was like the watch it off the tape hyper fixation. So I had a lot of those, but the Last Unicorn was the one that was like.
Yeah, I remember getting Shrek on VHS when it came.
Oh my gosh.
I probably watched that a ridiculous amount of time. Because
I did watch that one too on a TV that like was my first TV in my room where you had like the actual VCR in the TV and it was like blue, clear, the like typical like Y2K TV, the ones that the kids have now. They literally want those. The kids would have died for my room back in the day.
There you go.
I had the clear VHS TV that was like blue. I had a Y2K candle that had a caveman on it. Like I had everything you wanted from Y2K. Tamagotchi, a Digimon.
Yep.
A fleece vest. Back when we used to wear like fleece vests, like colored fleece vests with like white long shirts or whatever. Jinko jeans. I had Jinko jeans back in the day. But yeah, Shrek. I watched probably for like that whole year quite a few times. Yeah, probably like 10 plus times.
I watched
when it came out. It was really good. The animation. I actually worked for DreamWorks back in the day as well. Not at that time, obviously.
Yeah.
And when you leave DreamWorks in an amicable way, that's the correct word, right? Amicable, like a pleasant way. Yeah. They give you a book basically set of every movie that DreamWorks has ever made. And so that was a special moment, that kind of Shrek moment, because Shrek was a kind of, I feel like a moment with CGI in a way.
Yeah.
Of that was just like really cool. But yeah, I love Shrek. It's really funny, but like being a introverted like curmudgeon, Shrek was a very good movie like growing up.
We all have those days where we just want people to get out of our swamp.
Oh, I want people out. I'm my swamp. I'm ready to move to the swamp. Like I live in Vegas. There's not really it's been raining almost to the point where we're about to hit a swamp. No, but I want to move to a swamp at this point because I'm so sick of Vegas. It's dry and hot, and I just want to be somewhere where it's wet. No, but like Shrek also I think was good as far as like music too.
Yep.
The music was very like vertical integration of like current pop times kind of thing, and also some like old like stuff. But it was a very good movie all
Yep.
around. I feel like good soundtrack, good movie.
I watch either Shrek or Shrek 2 every year on my birthday because
Oh, that's a good tradition.
I take off a day from work and just watch movies from the time I wake up until I go to bed on my birthday. And that's
Yeah,
definitely a staple.
yeah,
Uh,
that's a good one.
and watching Shrek 2 and realizing like as an adult them making cops references and
Yes.
OJ Simpson references.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's what I say is like as a kid, the kids don't notice, and then the adults watching it can enjoy it. And then when you grow up, you can maybe even learn. Or if you were a kid and it did
oh,
almost click, it's like I like that because I feel like a lot of people are adverse to kind of kids movies, animated or CGI. They don't want to entertain it because they feel like it's childish. But I'm like, some of those
Shrek.
movies I feel like have better like themes and tones than adult movies.
Oh, Shrek's so much better for as an adult. Like
Yeah.
my mom and my aunt took myself, my brother, and my cousins to that, and like I was 10. This was 2001. I think my mom broke when Gingy's just like, eat me.
Yeah, yeah,
And she's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, what did I take my child to go see? And all the phallic symbols and
Yes, and the weird like short small hand like there was like little jokes and like the dragon and the donkey
yeah.
the stuff with that like when you're a kid it doesn't quite click right away. Sorry, my cat wanted to be in. I hope you don't mind the cat
No,
joining the podcast
absolutely.
because she does not take no for an answer. She's like, it's time for me to be here.
I have
um
had my cats make appearances, so this is definitely a cat friendly channel. So
she's she loves movies as well. She watches the TV.
mhm.
Sometimes it depends on what kind of movie and like what's happening. But there was one that she was watching the other day that I was like cracking up because it like something was happening on the screen. I don't remember what it is now, but she doesn't always watch movies. But sometimes if like there's a little something moving on the screen, it'll like get her.
Our new kitten's been attacking my laptop every time I try to watch something. I'm just
They're
like,
like, excuse you, like it's time for me, not for the movie.
it's like,
You have to get them a little laptop that you put next to your laptop, and
well,
then
we
that's
have an
like their
iPad and just put like bird or squirrel videos on, and yep, they're entertained.
work.
Watch them. But now, what's a film that you feel like you connect to because it closely relates to an interest of yours?
Um, to an interest of mine, well, I would say Tu Wong Fu because obviously I'm a drag queen,
Mhm.
and I feel like Tu Wong Fu was also a movie in a sense that there's a lot of movies that I feel like people take for granted nowadays as they were politically incorrect now, but people don't realize some of them were politically incorrect even in their time.
Yeah.
And they were, in a sense, supposed to be like politically incorrect. Like in that movie, RuPaul is dressed as this drag queen called Rachel Tensions. And so it's supposed to be racial tensions, and she wears a Confederate flag dress. And it's like, it's the point. It's supposed to be like, like tongue in cheek, whatever. But I do enjoy that too, because it connects to me where it's drag, but also it's a good way to, I do, like I said, those conversations. I don't think there's anything wrong with those conversations. And I think those movies are good for making those conversations. So I'm one to not view it as like a bad thing as long as we can acknowledge it, like, and talk about it and like grow from it and not, have it happen continually, but still enjoy the things for, what they were at the time. If they weren't like, there's some that are just not, it's like, not all of them are like this, obviously.
Yeah.
But it definitely was one. And then also kind of, it was the same thing, but like Mrs. Doubtfire, of a movie that's like connects to me in a way of like artistic. And it was also like, I'm more of a hosting type queen and funny, like, and so Mrs. Doubtfire being a funny, you know, just like hilarious kind of movie definitely made me feel good about like being a boy wanting to do feminine things, but also wanting to be like funny and like everybody likes them. So being basically like a clown. So that movie really I connected to for like the sense of, you know, my kind of interests.
Absolutely. Now, who's a movie character you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
So the movie I talked about, White Oleander, it's a female character, but the things that they kind of went through in the movie, they go through foster systems. I actually was more through like different family situations, but I kind of feel connected to that character in a sense that like the mom was Norwegian, I believe, like in the movie. So she keeps talking about being like a strong, like we're Vikings, we're strong Vikings. And my family also, my dad's side is Norwegian as well. And he was the abusive side. So seeing this character too, that was also a person that I knew, that I connected to the movie in a way of seeing that, and also the other character that I saw myself in. But then it has a really good ending, and so I always connected to that in like, you know, like I can have an ending like this character tell. But I always connect to powerful female characters. So any characters that are females, Galadriel, when she goes from like saying like in place of a dark lord you'll have a dark queen, that I connect to a huge amount. When people ask my pronouns, that's what I usually say. I feel like my pronouns is that moment when she turns into the swamp witch. So I connect to that character specifically because I'm more like gender non-conforming, but yeah, that whole line is like beautiful and, you know, as treacherous as the sea. Those kind of things. Any female character, yeah, like Tomb Raider that I was talking about earlier, Angelina Jolie. And then when I got older, connecting to that character, especially with what happened with her dad in that movie, which I found out later. Her not going non-contact with her dad, and him basically paying his way into that movie and trying to like force it on her, and her still saying no, and they having to do this weird like flashback thing. Like the whole thing was weird. And I connected to Angelina as like powerful, you know, Tomb Raider character, Lara Croft, but also as, you know, Angelina Jolie as a person that had gone no contact with parents. So those, I would say, are the characters that I connect to the most in movies. Sorry, it's all women, men characters usually. Mad Mardigan and Willow is a character that I connected to. But it usually wasn't men ever. Uma Thurman and Batman. I don't think there's a queer person alive that doesn't like say that one, but so it's like it's a little typical of an answer, but Uma Thurman and Batman and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman too. Just the whole story arc of like Hell Here Now, like that, all of it, connect to all of that. Wanting to destroy your boss, your corporate boss.
Those the female antagonists or anti-heroes in those Batman movies are a whole entire mood. And actually
most sci-fi like Marvel ones, even like Elektra, I liked Elektra growing up, and everybody hated it. And I connected to it and I enjoyed it, and I loved Jennifer in it. And like Sucker Punch, I connected to a lot. Everybody hated it. And I connected to that character and that storyline. I just got it. I guess that's what a lot of people I feel like didn't like about the movie. They didn't quite understand it. It just made sense to me in a way, kind of disassociation fantasy land, obviously. And the effects were really good, yeah, for that one as well. But yeah, female antagonists or even villain characters often were queer coded too. So I obviously connected to those as well, just because they usually queer code like villain characters. You know, Ursula.
Yeah.
Ursula was one that, yeah, I definitely connected to as a kid growing up, because I was just like, you can just tell, you can feel this energy, even as a young kid. Any character that was like that, you just kind of felt it, even if it was just an ambiguousness. I would say another one that I noticed, but I don't think was like meant to be like that, was Zorg in Fifth Element kind of had this androgyny to them in a way, but they were also, you know, the villain. It was like this androgynous. I don't know. I could have been reading into it myself, but those characters I always connected to a lot.
The whole entire Fifth Element has very specific vibes.
Yes, and I connected to all of those characters, like everybody. I feel like I connect to Corbin Dallas. My nephew is actually named Corbin after that movie. His name is Corbin something else. It's something with a D, but I always call him Corbin Dallas, and he's like, "That's not my name." And Dennison, and Corbin Dennison. And I'm always like, Corbin Dallas, and he's like, "That's not my name." But the kind of like stay in your house with the cat all day, my kind of life. You're never answering your calls from your mother, my kind of life. And then Lilu, the makeup, when I remember now as a drag queen, I'm like, I need that eyeshadow machine that you just go like zap and just like put it on your face. And wanting to kick everybody's butt. And then Ruby Rod being loud, flamboyant, feminine character, obviously. Everyone in that movie was good. Zorg, and the assistant and the flight attendants. If you were a queer person, I feel like there wasn't a character in that movie. The Diva Laguna, there was not a character in there that you couldn't really like. Be like, ooh, that's a good character for queer people. Because if you have that gender queer kind of situation, you can kind of connect to all of those characters in a way. For me, at least.
Luc Besson was doing something very unique in the 90s with that film. I love the film. It's such a great time.
That's another one of my favorite films that I probably could like watch, like I would say every day and be okay. But I might get sick of it after a while. Maybe. I don't know. I think I could watch that one every day. Probably.
Now, what's a film that you love that you think might surprise people?
A film that I love that might surprise you. I'm trying to think of a film that I've seen that I did love that I might not have seen multiple times. Like, when I was young, I did see a film that I loved, and this is funny. It's a sci-fi movie, and I don't remember the name now, but it was a Merlin movie. And you know, when you're a young kid and there's an adult like nudity scene or something, and then they're like, put your hands over your eyes, and like if you're a queer kid, especially when it's like a straight scene, you're like, don't worry about it. But like I was like doing this, you know, like watching my like scene and it was Morgan Le Fay like seducing her brother or whatever. And then when I got older, someone was like, what was the first boobs you saw in a movie or whatever? And I remember saying that and then looking up who it was, and it was Helen Mirren.
You're talking about Excalibur. I watched that in school. And
he had like the golden metal helmet or whatever.
Because Mordred was like head to toe this crazy
armor.
Excalibur is quite the experience.
I love that movie a lot too. I don't go back and watch it, but I remember seeing it as a kid, and it was one of the movies I think that like definitely shaped my interest in sci-fi because the animation, the fight scenes, the music stylings of that movie were really good. I really enjoyed it all. I'm sorry, this flash is like trying to escape today. But that was a really good movie. And like I said, I would say the surprising part would be like the heterosexualness of it. Seeing a boob. But I remember, someone asking me, what was the first boobs you ever saw? And it was that.
Mirren.
And that's a good movie that I love. I guess that's not surprising though. That's not surprising at all. But I do love all movies. So like I said, I don't think anything would actually really be that surprising.
But I remember watching that in school, and because like one of the first scenes in the movie is Arthur's father magically taking the place of another kid and then raping his wife.
And that was traumatic. I remember even young, and because you understand it's wrong, like everything about it, and like because the little girl can tell that it's not, there's just everything about it was wrong. And so I think that did shape my sense of kind of justice and like the strive for good, because I feel like that is the overlaying theme of any Merlin movie, and Arthur and Excalibur is anybody can kind of be corrupted and yada yada yada, and affairs and all that. But that scene, it's a bit much.
Yeah.
And
and I just remember like he's in full armor and she's completely naked. Yeah. I'm just like, what is going on here? I'm pretty sure I was in like 10th grade in high school. I'm just like, what are we watching?
It was full. And I remember as a kid, I was like, this was one that I definitely should have not had my situation going on, because I was like, it was very graphic. Yeah. But like I said, I wasn't a heterosexual kid, so it didn't actually affect me that way. That's why I also hate when people talk about that, where they say like kids, like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, or 5-year-old, when you're in kindergarten, what kids give you butterflies on the playground, or what movie character gives you butterflies. A lot of characters people talk about Disney ones, like Aladdin or like the Disney princesses. Mine was Mad Mardigan and Willow. You don't understand it. You don't understand, it, but you're like, ooh, that character just gives me the butterflies. And the Merlin one definitely wasn't giving me the butterflies. I was like, oh, that lady's beautiful. I understood that part of it, yeah. And the Morgan Le Fay, evil witch, I was like, I want to be that lady. I remember that. And especially the made-for-TV one, the one with Sam Neill and she's always in Tim Burton movies. I hate Helena Bonham Carter. Was Morgan Le Fay, and I remember wanting to be her in that one too. That movie, she was so like beautiful and just like gorgeous. But yeah, it always invoked that feeling, wanting to more like be them than like feel that. Yeah. So if you ever think that kids don't know that stuff, when they're young, they do. Because I definitely knew. I was like, I would like to more like dress like that lady. Also, female characters in shows always just look better. They always give them cool outfits.
Yeah, generally it's like, unless the film's going out of its way to really show off like male fashion, it's not really. It's like,
male fashion is never usually like, it's like especially if it's fancy, it's like some armor, and it's usually not like super interesting. Usually, the females, they get like a robe or like a dress or some crown, something fancy to wear. Mm-hmm. The crowns are always good. I remember the one with the blonde actress, the huntsman with Charlize Theron. Yeah. This lash is done for. It hates me. But yeah, Charlize Theron in that one. I remember the fashions. I was just like, all of that. I wanted all of it.
Yeah, and then you just have Chris Hemsworth, who looks like a grubby mess.
Exactly. Who wants to dress like, nobody was dressing up like Chris Hemsworth, okay?
No, he looks like
Everyone
he
was
goes
dressing
around.
up like Charlize Theron because she was the one that everyone wants to look like. Yeah.
Yeah, she stood out in that movie. Like,
Yeah.
now my final question is,
The final question.
what do you love most about movies?
The thing I think I love most about movies is someone trying to tell a story, even if it's not that deep of a story. I like the concept of someone trying to get across a point. And I do sometimes like the more metaphorical ones, even if it doesn't always get understood, which sucks. But I do like some of the deeper metaphorical kind of movies that have more of like a thought process to them.
I see you like A24
Definitely.
films. That's the first thing that pops in my head. It's just like any A24 horror movie. Oh,
Yes.
you don't want things concrete? Well, we got the movie for
Or
you.
like The Cell, or like anything that kind of is like trying to, or there's a Neil Gaiman movie that was almost like kind of surrealistic, like Dolly, those like otherworldly, like some of those, and even like sci-fi ones. They're trying to show you it like an X-Men. It was like the civil rights movement. They're trying to like teach you something in a way that's a deeper message. I like those kind of movies. But really all movies. I do love all movies, and I give all movies a try. And I can even like watch bad movies and enjoy them for like what they are, but also know see the things that are not great. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how I always like to wrap up this show is letting my guest ask me a question. So, Anyonka, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
Okay, my question is, if you could make a movie, like if you could, throw out the concept and like have it made to your exact liking and all that, what kind of movie do you think you would make? Like, what would be the first movie if you just had like unlimited budget, unlimited creative control and stuff? If it was like remaking it or something, or like a movie, or I mean, not a movie, a book, video game, comic book, something that you want to turn into something.
It's funny because I have written some screenplays before and haven't really done anything with them. And honestly, I haven't written in that way in years, especially since I got really into doing all these movie reviews and stuff like that. There's only so much time to actually write things, especially when you have a full-time job on top of it. But I know I had an idea for a movie series in my head for like 8 years, and I finally put it down on the paper, and it was definitely heavily influenced by like Mad Max.
Mad Max when I was growing up was another one that was like a sci-fi in a way that I loved. And Tina Turner, again, we're talking costumes, we're talking looks, serving it. Also the lines, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Like I definitely, and then Charlize in the remake, that was a remake that I loved. It was perfect. I feel like it was perfect because it was like the same story but different enough, and like different characters that you're interacting with. They did a good job, I feel like, of that. So I would love to see that.
It was what George Miller would have made if he had $150 million in 1981. But I love Fury Road.
And another one that, again, casting not so great, questionable things, good that we can look back and talk on it. But I loved those, as a kid and growing up with them. They were another one that was like it kind of is triggering here in Vegas because we live in the desert. So like you sometimes feel like that is about to be our reality very quickly.
As somebody from New Jersey.
So sometimes those movies can be a bit much to watch because I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to live through freaking Mad Max by Thunderdome. But I'll be looking as fierce as we won't have lashes because, as you can see in Vegas, it's far too hot for that. So y'all are just gonna have to get used to that during the apocalypse. But I'm gonna be looking as good as at least Tina Turner was in that movie.
It was funny because I was just talking about her because I did I did a little podcast about musicians, films starring musicians. Of course, like Auntie Entity is a whole entire thing in
Yes.
on Thunderdome. And
Yeah.
but like the idea that I had was very heavily influenced by Mad Max, but like more more grounded and more today because I can see that kind of stuff actually
Yes,
happening.
it's definitely, it feels like we are so close to that. Yeah. I would love that. And you said like a series, movies. I like to think of movies too, of like what I would like to see. And I usually like three to five is like my favorite. I feel like once you start going past that, it gets to be a bit much. Even if it was like from books or something.
You should not have.
Yeah, I feel like five is like you're pushing it, even at five sometimes. But yeah, that's something I would definitely love to see. I also really enjoyed growing up. Mad Max and Waterworld was another one of that kind of sci-fi-ish, apocalyptic.
Because like there's definitely a range from like Mad Max and Waterworld's craziness, and then
Waterworld almost has this like calmness to it, and like mellowness with like the water even, and Mad Max is just like in your face. Also, you can almost like smell the vehicles while it's like happening. Like it's very like it's just like has a different feel to it.
Of all 2 hours of Fury Road, sitting in a theater for the first time watching that, I was in my black leather jacket and everything, and like,
oh my god,
I'm like sweating in here because like this is intense.
Yeah, and it was, and I remember it was really good though. I saw it in theater as well. There's certain ones that I will always see in theaters, especially horror movies. I feel like the sound system is just very important with like the suspenseful type of movie that you want to get that. But yeah, seeing that one in the movie theater, I was like, it's so good. And they did really good with like the costuming and art and makeup as well. Because I, as a drag queen, like model, I pay attention to those things because when you work with stylists and clothes and all that kind of stuff for so long, you start to notice that in those things. And you try to see like what they did or who they used, or I also like to see if they paid people right. Because that doesn't always happen. And what their views are, because like that was a remake and they did, I feel like, great with like the costume updating a bit. I would have liked a little more of like the fierce campiness, but I was okay without it.
I think because like Fury Road definitely feels like what Road Warrior would have felt like in 2015, unless like Beyond Thunderdome had a very specific feel, and
it was different 80s. From because how many were there of the older ones? It was like three. Yeah. It was very different from the other ones. It did have like a different feel to it, and that's why I barely even remember the other ones. Sadly, I don't remember watching them that much. I watched them a couple times, I remember, but the Thunderdome one was like into my brain. Because Tina Turner, Fierce Divas, gets you stuck in your brain for those movies.
Yeah, because George Miller's business partner passed away before they started making Thunderdome. So like he took a step back and didn't direct most of the film. So I think that's kind of why it has a different kind of feel to it.
That makes sense. That's so unfortunate when that kind of stuff like happens.
Because like I think he only directed 2 sequences, and it was the Thunderdome sequence and like that giant train chase at the end of the movie.
Okay, that's a good. Those were the good ones that I enjoyed of that.
He's basically like, if I'm going to direct anything, I'm directing the action in this movie. You can take care of everything.
Yeah.
You can deal with all the little Lost Boys and stuff like that. It turns into Peter Pan.
Is there, and sometimes I feel like it would be good to have different directors, because I feel like some directors are really good at pulling out like emotions out of actors, and some are really good at directing like an action sequence, or some like a walking sequence where you're trying to kind of follow a character, or like those ones where they do it coming out from like a car and like they go through the windshield or whatever. I can definitely see how that would be beneficial, but also like unbeneficial, obviously, if like someone's having a moment. So that makes sense why that one's a bit different. Yeah.
But yeah, and like if people couldn't tell, like love Mad Max, seeing is like all of my branding's all Wasteland stuff. So
Yeah, I love Mad Max. I've always wanted to do the Tina Turner character, but the chainmail, it's a very specific type.
mhm,
And with my cosplays, I'm very, if I can't do it almost like photo identical, I usually don't like to do it.
yeah,
Because I'm just like a weird person like that. But it's on a list. I have a giant like mega list of characters that I would like to get to. And yeah, the Queen of the Thunderdome, Tina Turner, is definitely on that list with the chainmail. And the same with in Willow, Sorsha from Willow wears chainmail. So that's another character that I was always on the fence of wanting to get into chainmail myself. Haven't done it yet. Might have someone else do it, but I still am going to eventually do that look. And I've always wanted to I love those fashions, kind of the idea of apocalyptic fashions. Because I even think about it now, because I'm like, I would still like to have fun and look nice in the apocalypse. So what would I be doing if, we were doing Mad Max and here in Vegas, figuring out what I can use for some eyeshadows or wigs. Because I don't think I would wear wigs anymore. They can just be a pain in the butt. So I'd figure out something else to wear on my head, maybe like a foam biker helmet that looked like a wig. I could be a creepy biker helmet drag queen. The makeup could be right on the mask, so you don't have to put on the makeup.
There you go.
It would be perfect.
Yeah, the one convention I went to, I usually would go to MagFest with my brother, and so it was always either somewhere in Maryland or like National Harbor, Virginia, like National Harbor, Maryland, and I cosplayed one year. And I did Mad Max. Like I was Max Rockatansky for one of them.
Yeah.
And it was like first Mad Max one, where it's like had a fully intact leather outfit. Instead of shoulder
leather outfits in a con, you'll learn. My first one was Catwoman. I wore Catwoman to a con for 6 hours, and it was like leathery, pleather. But no, I do not wear leather to cons anymore.
It was 14 degrees outside.
Oh, that's a little bit better. That's different. Here in Vegas, it's like when we were in a convention, it's like 107. So leather and pleather is not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a different, I always forget. In a winter setting, that would be great.
Yeah,
that would be a lot.
MagFest is in January, and that first MagFest I went to was like 14 degrees outside. Because this is interesting because I did a hermit Luke Skywalker cosplay the first day, and this was like post Force Awakens, but the Last Jedi didn't come out yet.
Okay.
So like people weren't pissed off yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe just pissed off that Luke showed up for like 2 seconds at the end of the movie.
That's so unfortunate too, because Star Wars has so much that they can go off of. And I feel like they just chose to that was one where they could have just gone off some source material that they already had. I felt like I'm biased. I feel like they should have made those last 3 movies about Ahsoka. I feel like she's more interesting than any of the other characters in Star Wars, but I'm biased. I'm very biased.
Excited for her show.
I'm so excited
at this point.
I mean, I really did want it to be a movie because I think that's originally what it was supposed to be. And I was sad that they didn't do that, but I'm very excited for the show. Yeah.
Well, and I think Obi-Wan was supposed to be a movie too.
Yeah, Obi-Wan and the Boba Fett. Yeah, we're all supposed to be movies. And you can tell, you can feel it. It's just a movie with all the filler left in.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it's still for what it is, because it's like watching the Lord of the Rings in the full version. It's like you're watching all the filler or whatever, just pretend like it's a TV show.
Yeah, some of those deleted scenes from Lord of the Rings are amazing, and then some of them I'm like, why'd you make Gimli a clown?
I don't even know why we shot it in the first place. Yeah, but other ones, you're like, this is very good. Yeah, I'm excited for the TV series as well. I'm not like everybody. Everybody's like already mad about it in certain ways. I'm not like everybody. I obviously am very happy to see people of color. I'm very happy with the villain character. I know everyone was kind of feeling weird about the villain character. I don't know why. They said they were kind of saying, I don't know, it was like they were saying they looked angsty, kind of like angsty, teenagerly looking. And I'm like, well, what do you expect an evil like character to start out as? I don't know. Obviously they're not going to be the like grandioso villain at the beginning.
Like,
but yeah, people are mad about that. Mad.
People need to relax, honestly.
But yeah, Lord of the Rings, those movies, I feel like the long extended versions are the only ones that I've ever been able to do that with, though. Any other extended ones, usually not.
Yeah,
not at
I
all.
have fond memories of getting that box set for the first time and staying up all night in college watching all three of them.
Yeah.
That was one of my fondest memories of freshman year of college. But there you go. But this was such a pleasure, and I'm so glad, Anyonka, that you were able to make it onto my show.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it because I love movies, and I always see your posts about all the movies, and then it also even sometimes helps me, so I appreciate it because sometimes I see things and I'm like, I didn't even know that was like a thing, or I hadn't seen that yet, so I really appreciate it.
That's the biggest thing for me. It's if somebody gets a nice recommendation out of something, or sometimes if they get a avoidance. Just like,
definitely,
I'm not going to spend my time with that, because that happens a lot too.
I am very thankful for those as well.
But if you'd like to shamelessly plug one last time before we wrap up.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitch and TikTok and Instagram. If you want to find me, it's Anyonka Virgon, Anyonka. Different spelling than the regular spelling because Buffy and gamer tags back in the day were not, it was not available. And then Virgon is like Virgo with an N on it. Battlestar Galactica / Caprica kind of referencing, but also I'm a Virgo. So Anyonka Virgon. And yeah, find me on any of those. Come play video games with me if you want. Come check out cosplay TikToks or cosplay Instagram posts.
Absolutely. And you definitely don't want to miss out, because I'm definitely...
Or see me at a con. I do go to cons here in Vegas, so if you ever do some of the cons here, because we have a lot, you might catch me at one of those.
There you go. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.